It's another Saturday filled with fun in the crypto space. How's the audio? Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep, can hear you okay.
All right, and this week we're joined by Harpreet Singh of Block Lime. Very, very good to have you here, Harpreet. Thanks for joining us today.
A pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me here.
Yeah, you're most welcome, man. Have you been following up with this week? There's been so much happening. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's happening a lot every week, right? I mean, like every week there's like, like new highs and new lows, and every new projects are coming in, projects are dying. But like it's like a consistent battle to be, like ahead of the curve, to know everything. So
I think I think 9 times out of 10, with one exception that happened recently, 9 times out of 10 you can predict which projects are going to be the ones that are going to hurt people. For example, any number of, I always harp on about hot dog finance, but I think pretty much it's pretty obvious when something's a scam. But I think the one that shocked everybody last week, and it escapes me, but it was Andre's play, where there was a I wouldn't really say a glitch, but there was a unforeseen exploit in the code, and basically people got drained. So that was an unexpected one. But when you and I hate to use the cliche too much, but when you test in production, I mean that shit happens. That's why most people don't do it.
Where do you guys stand on that? I mean, which side of the fence? Because I saw it was so, split in terms of like supporters and people that are against it. Like some people are like the guys that invested in it were just fools. He always says that he tests in production, so you shouldn't be throwing your money around anyway. And then there's other people that are just like, completely contrarians, man. So I saw that the whole community was divided on this. What are you guys thinking?
I'll go with Harpreet first because he's the developer.
Yeah, what do you think?
I mean, to be honest, my first rule in testing is like you never test anything in real production. Actually, you should seriously consider of testing it all out, ensuring that the minimum risk is involved. Because just to give a bit of a story to this, I come from a background of hardware, software developments. Where usually you deploy hardwares, into industries or different countries, you actually can't really go there and fix those bugs, right? So we always had a mindset that you have to fix everything at the get-go. You have to consider every possibility of failures before you deploy those. And I think that is one mindset that actually most blockchain companies and smart contracts developers need to have, is that there's no, easy second round that is actually waiting for you. So there is no such thing as testing in production. Basically, if you're in production and you're testing, you fucked up. You say it simply, right?
I mean, my take would be that, I mean, because I've developed the product and all that kind of stuff, and I think that the lesson would be that he got away with it once, so therefore statistically the next one should be a fuck up, because nobody's perfect. And don't get me wrong, I mean, the guy's a significantly better developer than I could ever aim to be. And in honesty, he's added a lot of value to a lot of people with Wi-Fi. But there's a reason why he puts the disclaimers on there. And I think that people shouldn't necessarily blame him, because I mean, when you go to McDonald's and you order a quarter pounder, you know what you're going to get, and you can get the shits when you don't get what you think you're going to get. In this case, I mean, if you're investing in a high risk, new concepts in this space, and the code is, basically hasn't been tested appropriately, then that's what you're going to get. And if it happens 10 times and you only get burned twice, then it's not the end of the world. I mean, but that's the game you play when you do this. So I think it's the users have nothing to complain about. It's like they knew it. It's basically the one punchline of his entire fucking career is tests in prod. It's like everyone knows that about the software he develops. So it's like, you know what you're getting, right? Like, and if you just ape into something and you're just like, yeah, fuck it, this is going to work out for me, then you're letting your greed dictate, what's right. And I think that, you know, if you were that level of greedy, then maybe this is, I'm not overly religious, but maybe this is God's way of saying, you know, chill out. So I think that's the only way I can, that's the only way I can put it in my view.
Man, yeah. I'm not sure if I stand in that camp, but somehow I'm on the fence on both sides. I mean, I see both sides of you because, like, you know, you put something out there and you know you've got a following and you're hot. I mean, Andre is hot right now and everyone's following everything he's doing, right? So the moment he tweets something and teases you, you know you're going to get people to, you know, they're going to be interested, they're going to follow. And you've seen people launch contracts for hot products right now without, you know, even the main teams like actually approving the launch, right? So that's like the crazy world that we live in right now. And yeah, it's I can kind of I really see like both sides of the story, and like I just thought it was amazing, like on Twitter, the how divided the community was, because you really have people like defending Andre, and then you have other people just going like, mate, you've got to grow up, you've got to take responsibility for your actions. You know, people lost serious money now, and you know this is not a game when you're talking about like $15 million involved in, like, you know, just losing it overnight. But I mean, yeah, I see both sides.
But at the end of that, I mean, my view is just like you know what you're getting, and people were getting involved. They know it's a high risk game, and they're getting involved early because they think they can make the most amount of gains by aping into it. But anyone who knows anything about, you know, the way to make money and capital management and risk management is high risk is high reward, and sometimes when you're playing high risk, it doesn't go your way. Like guys who say got involved with Wi-Fi in the first place, exact similar circumstances, untested, blah blah blah. But if you're one of the lucky few that were in Wi-Fi at the start and you farmed, you know, 20 tokens, you are absolutely minted right now off the back of that. And then people basically say, well, it worked last time, I'm going to go again now. You know, under the law of averages, you can't just be a one-man money printing machine. Eventually, it has to revert to the mean. So then you have to lose some people money to offset the fact that you made a whole bunch of other people money. That's just how it works. So in this case, I don't know. I guess I can empathize with the people that lost money, but I don't have sympathy because you went in eyes wide open about, you know, what you were getting involved in. And in the same way that if you go to degen mode in CoinGecko, and then you can look at the farms with the highest yield of like 10,000%, but then all the tokens that are unaudited are the ones that have the 10,000% yield. So you know what you're getting into with that. You know, okay, well, I'm getting into something unaudited. I know that there's a good chance I could get the rug pulled. But I'm going to have a go because I can earn that 10% 10,000% APY. And then if you get rug pulled half the time, you'll probably still make money off the five that don't.
Like, what's that degen part of the CoinGecko? Is that the farming part?
You go into farms.
Hold on, I'll put it up on the screen.
You go into farms.
This one.
Yeah, and then there's a little degen button just there.
What? No, where is that? Oh my god, there really is.
And then it turns into a Chad gecko.
That's hilarious. I've never seen that.
We talked about it last week, man.
Oh, well, I know. I saw the farming section, but I didn't see the degen button. That's
and so
hilarious.
you can actually see their audits not available. And then some of the ones that generally are audited, they'll obviously offer a lower yield because more people would be farming, so you're not sharing with as many people. So in that case, I mean, but the thing is that you know what you're getting into here, right? Like, and it's the same thing with this. And I mean, the thing is that, you know, Andre, like I said, very talented developer, but obviously he's not infallible. And I mean, that was proven. And so either two things need to take place. And I'll be honest, the burden is not on Andre to change because basically he advertises exactly how he works. Like that is his persona, is the whole test in prod, FU. I don't, you know, and he didn't make any money out of Wi-Fi. He just did it because it was something he wanted to do. And that's all part of this sort of persona he's built up. So it's really about making sure that the market factors in that when making decisions, when interacting with stuff that he builds. And it's more that people need to be slapped into place to understand that's what you're getting involved in, and that, you know, this guy might develop 10 products over the next 2 years. And, you know, 2-3 of them may go to shit because he tests in prod. But the other 7 might be absolutely gangbusters. But that's the risk.
True.
And you've just and when you're playing in this space, I mean, like, if someone was going to hot dog finance and like, 10,000 trillion% APY, this is legit, I'm going to get involved. Do you have any sympathy for the guy who loses his 50th when he gets involved in that? Of course not. You're going to look at him and go, you're an idiot. And so,
you're a full degen.
You're not gonna feel, you're gonna say, well, man, what did you think? 10 trillion APY? It's not achievable. You're an idiot. Of course, you're gonna get the rug pulled. And it's the same with this. You know, if you're experimenting with a project that is 1 day old with untested code that was built in production and deployed, you're gonna get that sometimes. And if you get the wrong end of the stick, just be happy that the hacker gave back 8 million. He could have been like the KuCoin guy and just took it all.
Man, let's get into that after like doing a round of hellos to this community. So shout out to Cuckoo, Ian, JX, Benson, Renelin. Good to see you guys. I'd love to hear your thoughts about what you think about Andre's latest project and where you sit on the side of the fence. Post your comments and let us know what you're thinking. But yeah, man, what were we saying about that? Completely lost my train of thought.
What's up, man? Happens.
What were you saying about the 8 million? So like the 8 million got returned. Why? That's why I really want to understand. Like, was he trying to frame him?
The guy wasn't a hacker. The guy was basically, he used an exploit. He used an exploit to get away with something. And so when you're exploiting, you know, when you're using what would be like a contract exploit as opposed to physically hacking, the guy was probably just like, oh, I want to see if this thing works. And then holy shit, it worked. And then he's like, well, you know, I made a couple of mil for myself, but I'm not greedy. I'll probably say it's that. It was probably someone who, in all honesty, was just wanting to see if doing this thing would work. And then it worked too well. And he's like, well, I'm happy to take some money off the table, but I don't want to take all of it. So, yeah.
Hey, Harpreet, question for you, right? Because I know usually they do like bounties for tech guys who find flaws in the code, right? So do you think there's a chance that the person, like the hacker, basically, he thought, right, I'm gonna take whatever cash I can, but I'm gonna only take a portion of that as a a bounty reward for being able to find the flaw?
I think it's generally, basically, somebody was just testing out. I mean, like a lot of times there is multiple contracts that you actually, like sometimes it's just a simple bug in the contract. Like a lot of the previous hacks that happened, some of the, like some of the really good hacks that happen out there as well. All of them were just basically some exploits of the smart contracts. Maybe there was just like a variable wrong, somebody forgot to put, some permissions. In that case, like, like people, just went out, managed to exploit those. And in certain cases, the hackers never even managed to run away with the money. They just basically went and killed those contracts. So it's not always the case where the hacker is trying to hack. Sometimes there's somebody who's really good with programming and coding. He's just trying that if he actually can make that thing happen. I mean, even like when we design, like some of our smart contracts, or sometimes when we, like do some of these programmings and we come across these kind of smart contracts, even we like to test out, hey, is that, is that flow going to work, or is that contract exploitable, right? So sometimes we just do that for fun, and then you earn that money or you earn that ETH, and then you're like, oh, you're like, I'm not supposed to. You feel pity about all those guys who's getting ripped off, and you're like the money that you're actually holding, but now you have done it, right? So what can you do now? Should you give back? Yeah. Should you not give back? Right? It might just be a curious developer who found a flaw, and he just went and exploited. If not, if it's a real hacker with a motive to actually go out and hack this, I think he would not return anything. He was definitely will just take everything and run off.
Right, exactly. There was definitely some kind of ethical component to it, right? Like, so somehow, like the guy, like he felt like he had to return something, which
Yeah, and he
anyway.
still made good money.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I think the
Yeah.
next thing though, there's two other things that happened this week. As soon as the market started to get a bit of steam under it, it just needed to be slapped down again. So obviously last week we had the KuCoin hack, which we talked about last week, and then we've just had the one of the main guys. I think the CEO of Bitmex, which is the
Bitmex.
largest derivative exchange in crypto,
Jesus.
was arrested in the States, and they basically accused them of operating an illegal operation, despite the fact that they're housed in the Seychelles. So it's a very, very interesting. And then there's also been a whole bunch of funny Twitter stuff where like I think someone has been not impersonating, but I forget what his name is now, but it's some other account has basically been using the CEO's photo on his Twitter, and it's just been posting all this shit just to just stir trouble. But it's an interesting one because, but I mean, look, it's one of those things that shouldn't actually affect the live markets because it's a derivatives exchange. So it means that as a derivatives exchange, it means that the actual impact it has on the physical Bitcoin and other markets shouldn't be massive. However, it does, I guess, send out a signal to the industry that you can't just do whatever the hell you want and not expect to then get the glare of some regulators at some point when you try to push the needle a bit too far.
Dude, but I saw that. I think they took out something like investors took out something like 45,000 Bitcoin out of their platform the last 24 hours. So that for sure that's gonna affect the markets, no?
You don't know what they're going to do with that Bitcoin. I mean, it'll affect the markets if they sell it, but I'll be honest, if you're the kind of person that has your Bitcoin on a derivatives exchange and you're using that as leverage to take other trades, you're not going to flog that Bitcoin. Chances are you're going to hold it and find some other way to use that leverage. So it's not. I do not think that the majority of that 45,000 Bitcoin is going to be sold on market. I think people are going to find other ways to use it for whatever the hell they're going to use it for. But I don't necessarily think it's a selling. I think it's more going to have a sentiment effect because obviously remember that markets are just as emotional as human beings. So when the sentiment falls that, oh my God, all this shit's happening, that obviously people will be less likely to want to pump money into the market and buy to push the prices up. And then we also had, Donald Trump getting COVID the next day.
COVID.
And then adds a layer of uncertainty about what's going to happen. And then we'll see. I mean, a lot of people, it's interesting the different takes people have on that because people are saying either it's going to add uncertainty and then people are going to sell or whatever. But then the other thing they say is that it might force the hand of the US government to put people back in lockdown and then start printing money again to then give to the people so that they don't all die, which basically means that people will keep trading on Robinhood and buying Bitcoin and getting involved in crypto and all this stuff. So, silver lining.
The real life degenerates.
Yeah, well, you're stuck at home for 4 weeks. What else are you going to do?
Yeah, I mean, like, I again, man, I've seen like divided opinion about what's happening in the US markets right now. So, like, initially, I thought, like, as soon as the announcement went out that Trump got COVID yesterday, I mean, we saw some bloodshed already in the crypto markets, and obviously, US markets hadn't opened yet, but the futures were down. But I honestly, I thought when US markets opened, I thought we are going to see like a massive sell-off, but we didn't really, right? Like it seems to have
Yeah.
kept quite stable, and like yeah, maybe it's already priced in, and like you know, the macro picture doesn't look as bad, you know. And people were saying like you know, that even if he's like, you know, if he has COVID, you know, he's still able to basically function whilst he's in quarantine. You've got the vice president. He tested negative, so that's all good. And then, you know, well, I guess we've still got to wait for Biden's result as well, though.
Well, I mean, it's going to be. I mean, the thing about the United States is that obviously it can run fairly well on its own, you know, without an executive office. I mean, a lot of these offices basically can be run on their own. So, I mean, you know, if the commander in chief is knocked out for a few weeks, it's not necessarily going to be the end of the world. The only thing that would happen is that obviously, you know, certain people that might defer to Trump may take on, you know, decision making on their own. But I think that the message would generally still be the same. Like if they're going to spin up the money printer, that would have happened regardless. Any of those major decisions that, you know, they would need to act on as things develop, I mean, they're going to happen regardless of the state of the president. It'd really only be minor things that will be affected. So, I mean, that's probably why there hasn't been a negative reaction. Also, remember the markets aren't exactly completely bullish at the moment as well. You know, considering everything that's happening in the world, I think bad news I think for 2020, I mean, obviously the main meme about 2020 is it's just like the disaster year. And I think now you can buy like presidential election shirts that say Meteor 2020, like arguing that, you know, the next best thing that can happen to us this year is a meteor strike.
Don't say it, man.
And so, no, but I mean, but the thing is that bad news has diminishing returns. So there's been so much bad news over the course of the year that pretty much I think people are much more resilient to good news. And I think that if there was ever good news, if to bad news, whereas I think if we started to get some good news, I think the market would eat it up, and we'd see a bit more of a pump. But I think this market, but the same thing happens in a bull market. When you're in a bull market and things are pumping, you know, positive news has diminishing returns, you know. But in the same thing when you're in this kind of market, in this kind of, you know, this kind of year that we've had, negative news just has diminishing returns. People get resilient.
Yeah. For me, I think Trump getting COVID has less impact on the American economy, but bigger impact on the crypto prediction markets. Now, everybody who was like voting up for Trump in the prediction markets, like suddenly you can see all the trades just drop, and everybody is like, you know, like voting other candidates now. So because like now, since he's going to be sitting down at home, he'll be less seen by all the, you know, like all the voters. So people predict that maybe there might be some reduction in votes on the Trump side. But in that case, the prediction market is the only effect. I think it, you know, like the most heavy one you can see in the crypto market. Other than that, overall, there's just too many negative sentiments. There's just too much of fear because we have wars going on, we have pandemic going on, we have economical crash, we have everything bad in 1 year. If you sum it up, you can actually have the whole world history, and you can have 2020 where everything happened. You know. In a way, you know, like that's what's happening in this year, right? You might even have a recession. We don't know about that, but overall, I feel there's many reasons for the market to be red today. But I'm only surprised if you're not seeing those kind of rates that we used to see like maybe 3 years or 4 years ago. If you look into the percentage of reduction in crypto prices value, it's actually not that high. If you really look into it, if overall throughout the week, throughout the month, it is actually keeping a much stable, kind of value. So it shows that people kind of started to, rely on some of these assets. Even if you see like what are the largest drops in market in Gecko in the past few weeks, even the the shit coins are still holding quite well compared to some shares markets in in some of the world share markets. Some of the share markets. Assets are more volatile than some of the cryptos that it's outright garbage. I do not know what is going on, but I think there is a change of sentiment, and there is some sort of hedging that is happening. But because of all that stuff you've been hearing throughout this week, there is like some what do you call rate market today. But overall, I feel the sentiment is quite positive. If you look into the amount of market has moved, if not, I think it should be a huge dump. We should be looking at 9,000, 8,000 right now.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's true. And then, a lot of people like to say, like, don't fight the Fed. The Fed is basically promised more stimulus, and they're basically their printing machine isn't going to stop anytime soon. So yeah, I mean, it looks promising from that respect as well. And let me, I want to share another screen. So someone in our community here in the Philippines actually shared this tweet earlier today. Don't know if you guys can you see that okay?
Yep.
Yeah. And so so basically this guy Willy Woo wrote, fundamentally the market is scared for all the wrong reasons. MEX didn't get hacked, no traders will lose coins, futures exchanges will clean up their practices, we'll see less volatility, less scam wiki, more spot volumes, more organic moves, more institutional money. I thought that's actually a really good take.
I mean, I don't know about institutional money yet, just because of the immaturity of the market, and that's something I keep talking about in crypto for the last 3 years. And I don't think the market has really got that much more mature in the last however long. And probably some of these practices do need to get cleaned up, like people just doing whatever they want. I mean, the fact that, one of the most popular developers, and I'm going to harp on about it all night, openly advertises that he tests in production and people use his software, means that we are a while away from any institution wanting to put money into a market specifically like DeFi. I think we're at least a couple of years away from that level of maturity. But that being said, I mean, all those points are entirely valid. Is that the futures exchanges do need to clean up their practice, and in honesty, Bitmex, as far as a product, it was obviously professionally done, but it obviously hadn't gone through the appropriate licensing to be a futures exchange. Now, there's a reason why in the United States there's only a couple of products, only a couple of providers that can actually trade, for example, Bitcoin futures or futures in general, or any leveraged or derivative product, is because it's about protecting the end user. And it's about ensuring that, the end user knows what they're getting into and they're not just being silly, and that there's compliance processes and QA and all that kind of stuff. And that's why regulation is sometimes a good thing. And in any market where people can, through their own stupidity, lose money, and this isn't about like you pick short when you should have gone long or long when you should have gone short. I mean, like just doing dumb stuff like accidentally not realizing that you were leveraged up 20x, the market moves 2 cents and you wipe out your account in 5 seconds. Sort of the kind of stuff that kids are doing at the moment with Robinhood on their options account, where they make these really exotic, they're allowed to make these really exotic option positions with $5,000, and at the end of the day they're negative $68,000. And it's like, people shouldn't be allowed to do that. Like there shouldn't be systems that allow people to lose that much money that fast, unless they've gone through some kind of either training or they're made perfectly aware about how something's going to work. And that's why regulation exists. And that's why I think in our little bubble, DeFi is not too bad, because the general public doesn't get affected. It's only complete degenerates. 1 second. But then what we're going to see, hopefully, is that as this space matures, which will probably take time, is that some useful products will, bubble to the surface and survive. And then out of that will then be the stuff that the main market and then obviously your bigger, more institutional players will get involved in. But I mean, institutions are still not involved in crypto in a big way, despite the fact that all your big boys in 2017 were saying that it was going to happen around then. And it's still not. I mean, like, sure, they own some Bitcoin and they're leveraging using Bitcoin, which, in all honesty, means that we're probably at least a couple more years away from then that trickling down from Bitcoin, which is like the gold, into your more exotic stuff. in the same way that, for example, a lot of fund managers will put a lot of the majority of their wealth in fixed interest products. And then obviously as the pyramid goes up, the risk goes higher. So you're not just, so you're not putting all your money in big things. So at the moment, if funds are only putting a couple of $100 million or less, tens of millions into Bitcoin, then it's going to have to be a bit wild, a longer time before they're at $100 million in Bitcoin. And then they'll then put, say, 10 million into these more exotic things to try to get a higher alpha. And I just don't think we're there yet. And I don't think we're going to be there for a few years. So if anyone's bubble is getting pumped up about that happening, that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, just to put up about institutional money, when you said earlier, I think there is some amount of institutional money that's already coming into the space, but this is not the old way of making money. This is the new way of making money, actually. So more people are started to put in some portion of their funds into cryptos, even in the most craziest and riskiest portfolios, because if they win and won, they cover everything, right? So because like some of these returns are like so crazy and so, like so high, and in this case, if they win on one or two, they basically can cover a lot of the risk that they're actually putting in.
Yeah, but for an institution, there's not enough liquidity to make decent money. If you operate a $1 billion fund, you can't put any more. If you put $1 million into a project right now in DeFi, you can't sell. There is not enough liquidity in the market to dump $1 million worth of something. I mean, right now, I could go to, Uniswap, for example. Even your biggest projects, still only have liquidity pools of 10 million, which means that if you're trading if you dump $1 million into something, you're going to move the market in excess of 10, 15%. And these are big projects. So it's at the moment, there's just not that liquidity there. And the reason why there's not liquidity is because there's just not users.
No, in terms of, if you really look into most of the DeFi projects, how many real investors are there and how many token holders are there? The number hardly exceeds 5,000 for a lot of these projects. Yeah. Even the numbers of addresses, which you can mint up, new addresses every time. But if you look on Etherscan, most of these, projects doesn't exceed 5,000 or 6,000. So these are a very small group of people rolling back the monies from one project to another project.
Yeah.
But when I say that there's, there is institutional money in the space, there is margins, but there's no big money in the space. Nobody's willing to bet big in the space. There's no, and even old money is not going to come into the space. Where people already huge institutions are not going to put up their, their trades or bets in this market at the moment. But if you really look into, the one other thing that actually that's quite interesting these days is if you see the market shifts, right? So a lot of people are looking into the idea how Bitmex actually currently is, the Bitmex situation and what happened with all the DeFi market. I think, and you can slowly see the shift between centralized services to decentralized services to centralized services to decentralized services. And in this case, I think there's going to be a bit more, new discoveries being made. There will be some decentralized products that are more catered towards futures and the futures and perpetual contracts that are coming up. New form of fundraising will happen there. A whole new DeFi ecosystem is going to grow, and at the same time, the centralized market will also mature and start to get more regulated, and maybe possibly start to have more services to start integrating into them. Overall, if I see this, it actually is good. Because both sides are innovating new products, new services, new ideas. Some are losing money, some are making money, but eventually we might get out some good products on how to basically use your crypto. Because before the DeFi run, we only knew one thing: hodl on your crypto and hopefully one day the value will go up. But today we talk about not hodling your crypto, but putting your crypto to work and making that money today. Right. So eventually the discussion will be like, how can I not make, not just thinking that the product will 10x someday. It's like just putting back in the concept of shares, right? It's like keeping your shares into one platform and earning another share, right? That's already a unique, interesting concept already, right?
Oh, so no, don't get me wrong. I'm all about the innovation, the experimental side. But in the same way that, I think that all of us were saying this in 2017 and 18, is that 99% are going to fail, and then the 1% are going to dribble to the top, and that has rung true because there's a lot of products that for example, I mean, case in point would be something like Aave. Like Aave or FLend at the time was trading at fractions of a cent, like 0.0003. And I think it got lower in 2018. And that was a product that was good. People were using it. And it had a good community, all those kind of things. And that's now that is the biggest DeFi lending platform in the industry, number one. And it's, I mean, like, I think it's worth like 60 cents now or something. I haven't checked Aave in a while. But I think we're going to see the same thing again. Now, Aave may very well move into, top 10 territory as obviously this space grows. And then, but then I'm saying that the next run of projects, we won't see 10 YFIs. We'll see 1 or 2. And then, there won't be, there will only be, we won't see, 15 different lending protocols or farming protocols. There'll only be a couple. And I think that that's not a bad thing, but it's just really about people just need to understand that in this game of risk versus reward is that if you're going to get, for every time there's a 10x, there's something that goes down 99%. And you just need to be aware of that. Like, not everything in this market is going to go apeshit, and more likely than not, it's not. So just be careful with your money. The next thing though, which is a bit not crypto related, which I wanted to bring up, I'm just going to share my screen. Is this thing about the Coinbase CEO? I don't want to get too political, but I just think it's such an interesting move where so the CEO of Coinbase basically wants to be apolitical, as in, they're in crypto. They're not here to choose sides, because taking sides, I mean, I'd probably say that it's a good move. But he's not taking sides. He's saying, I'm not going to go for Republican. I'm not going to go Democrat. We're not going to go woke. We're also not going to go like, MAGA. Like, we're going to go just nothing. Neither. We're just going to shut up, because it's not our job to be political. We're a cryptocurrency exchange. Who gives a shit? And obviously, when they've done that, people have sort of got a bit cranky. And this is around the whole Black Lives Matter thing. And then basically his staff weren't overly happy, and they were like, well, no, we need to, take a stand, blah, blah, blah. And so he's come out and said, all right, if you don't like the business culture, we're going to give you a severance package, 6 months paid, blah, 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 all this other shit. You'll get your healthcare for 12 months. They basically just said, if you don't like it, just GTFO. Which is an interesting stance for a business, especially in America and especially in Silicon Valley. But I've got to say, I mean, if you're going to promote that kind of culture, more power to you. It's just, and the interesting thing is, he's not taking a political stance. He's saying we're apolitical. We're not going either way. And if you want to make this business political, you can leave, which I'm going to say is fair enough for me personally. But it's an interesting one to be talked about.
No, just an interesting observation. While we were talking, the market turned from all red to started to get all green now. That's how big the difference was. Yeah, you can see the whole top part of Coinbase was red earlier, and it started to get green up 1 to 2%. While the markets are started to pump or something, I'm not sure.
I think it's from our live stream, isn't it, Harpreet?
Yeah, it's from
our
the
live stream.
Yeah.
I don't know how many viewers we got, but it must be from them.
Yeah.
All the viewers. Good work, Ian. Good work, Kuku.
I think you might have awakened the wheels to go back and start pumping those coins.
You guys have been buying the dip.
Yeah, buying the dip, BTFD. I mean, look, this is not a bad situation to be in where we are now, but this was Bitmex and this was Trump. Because I was awake working when all this went down. So, for those two big things, not really a huge drop, and we're already recovering. So I guess it's just going to be seeing if we can fill this gap and if we can push through it. And then obviously the next step will be to then fill that gap and see if we can push through. But at the moment, looks promising. But because I think a lot of people would have fear sold and then gone from there. But yeah, this incredibly dicey political issue. What do you guys think?
I've not followed it at all. So basically, Coinbase has offered to give severance packages to people that don't follow their company culture. Is that correct?
No, it's basically saying that if you want the business to come out and say we support Trump or we support Biden or Black Lives Matter or All Lives Matter or whatever the hell the political statement of the day is, he said he said that we're not going to get involved. And so, for example, after several Coinbase engineers closed their laptop one day over the summer after Armstrong wouldn't say Black Lives Matter externally amid social unrest of police killings.
Did you know what this reminds me of? Do you remember, did you guys watch The Last Stand? Michael Jordan, right? About Chicago. But I know it sounds completely unrelated. But there's this one part that Michael Jordan talks about in The Last Stand, where he said he regrets this one moment where he basically didn't take a political stance on something, like a political decision. Do you remember they wanted him to voice out about some political decision? He said, no, I'm not gonna say anything. So he didn't take a stance, and apparently that destroyed part of his career going forward. And
really?
So that's what it reminds me of, actually. Yeah. Do you remember exactly what it was about, Heartbreak?
Yeah, I actually, like roughly remember the movie, but I can't remember what was the stand about. But I remember that scene, like that part of the movie. But just coming back to this point of discussion, I believe there is stands that business can take. There is stands that it can take personally. You believe something personally, it's up to up to you. It's what like what you would like to support as a political agenda or non-political agenda. But if it's a business, it's not just you. It's a whole organization of representing multiple people, and multiple people's stakes are involved in that. There are investors' beliefs, there's investors' stakes, there's companies, the employees' beliefs and stakes. So in this case, I believe a business should not take like political stance or do not support either way. Although in like I'm happy to say that like most of Asian countries don't have a lot of these issues where we have to take like political stands on basic things. But as what's going on in America, I can understand why would they do not want to be part of that like discussions and choose sides, because some places there's business interest and some places there's personal interest, and some ways they are outright like justice, right?
Yeah, well, my view would be that they can't win either way. If he goes out and he goes full on Black Lives Matter, he's going to piss off all the Republicans. And then if he goes, for Republican, he's going to piss off all the people who are going Democrat. And it's like, I'm going to say, it's like in this environment, I mean, and I agree with you. It's he would have staff that would be split down the line. He'd have half his, let's say half his staff are, Republican and half his staff are Democrat. It's like, well, how do you, as soon as you support one side, you alienate the other. So in this argument, it's like what he'll probably do by going neutral, he will kick out the extreme people on both sides, which, to be honest with you, is not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, because that extreme people who are pushing those real extreme edges, you would not be able to please in any way, shape, or form in the long run anyway, because if you do something to appease one side or the other, they would say that what you've done is not enough. And then it would just be this constant game of appeasement. Whereas if you just stay neutral, you keep everyone who is moderate on both sides, and then you, on both sides, drop the extremists. And maybe that in 12 months' time will lead to a better corporate culture. But we'll have to see how that experiment goes, because this is one of the first large American organizations that's publicly done something like this. So it'll be interesting to see how that experiment goes.
I found the reference. So in 1990, the US Senate race in North Carolina, Jordan did not publicly endorse a candidate called Harvey Gantt, a Black Democrat attempting to unseat Jesse Helms, white Republican incumbent. And that basically created a lot of controversy, and like it was one of his like it basically hurt his career, which is interesting, man.
Yeah, I think in this case it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, because the 90s was very different to now in regards to the level of partisanism, like, you know, the fact that you've got more extremes on either side at the moment than we've ever had in history. Polarization, that's it. People are more polarized now. It's like something ridiculous, like 30% on both sides are polarized, which is like nuts. Or is it 30% of people are polarized? I don't know, something like that. So yeah, that were my main points I wanted to go over, which I thought was the main things for me that got interesting for the week. Was there anything for you, old mate?
Yeah, I mean, like on my side, man, ETH 2 is basically getting really close right now. I don't know if you want to bring that up on the screen. I can't remember what it's called now. Like the first phase, it's phase 0, right?
You mean Casper?
Phase 0, Casper. I think it's Casper. But yeah, basically, ETH 2 looks like it's going to be ready at. Oh god, I don't want to give a timeline. I think it's
that'd be a heartbreak question, though. In all honesty.
Yeah, actually, heartbreak. Go. Do you know what the timelines are?
I remember it's supposed to be somewhere in November. Actually, honestly, I didn't really keep up with Ethereum, because every time they release and they delay it, I'm like kind of fed up with it. And these days, I'm like, like when it comes, man. I'm like, I'm already at that edge already, because we've been waiting it for really long to talk about proof of stake and Casper to come out. But I believe it's like it will take some time, and I'm just like wondering, is it the right timing to put it up? Like, because at the moment there's a rush of huge number of new contracts, new projects, new DeFi stuff that is going on. And when you release Casper and you announce Casper, how should the rollout be? That's what I'm really curious about. And the day when they release it, will it be like how we've been seeing previous rollouts or previous updates, where there's like a kind of a soft fork and you just change a new client? Or will it be like a gradual change where people start to move on to a new chain and there's like a token swap? Because overall it's a huge change, because and there's huge risk in it, because we have like if you screw up few parts in the code, there's a risk of the whole Ethereum chain to like be dysfunctional, and you might have to roll back to like adjust those changes. And it's not only Ethereum that will be in trouble, but every single ERC token and every single ERC economy that has been built up on the ecosystem. So that's the reason I'm really like trying to see what will be the process that like Ethereum is going to pick up on like rolling out like Casper out. But overall, I don't really see a lot of announcements on like what is the plan, and I never really kept up with it, because it's like like as what I know last, that the Casper was still in testing, and overall because even before you can start rolling out, there should be a certain amount of confidence level to be built on the protocol. And I think most of the projects need to start testing to move their projects there and test their project on their testnet before they release it. But I believe it's supposed to be somewhere in October or November. That's last I heard, that is going to be coming out somewhere in October or November. I believe it's somewhere announced somewhere on May that they would like to target for Q4 this year for the release.
Yeah, does someone in the community know? I remember seeing like an estimated date from one of the Ethereum core devs, and it looks closer than expected, actually. So I remember it's like either within the next one or 2 months, and that's pretty exciting news.
But I believe there might be an announcement, and right after the announcement, there should be a block number that they will say that like from this block number we will start migrating. But overall, I think there will be a time to grasp this time, because like previous soft forks, there you just have to update a client and like update few settings and you can just keep running. But coming towards this time, like this huge like upgrade that is about to happen, I think they will need to have a longer period of announcement, so more projects can start migrating, migrating their codes and migrating their software features to support the new chain. Because overall, I believe most of the ERCs will work fine on the new blockchain, but still there might be some custom smart contracts that might not be supporting, and those tokens might be affected. So that's the reason I think they need to have a longer period after the announcement that now they are ready. Because at the moment, we are still waiting for them to tell us that they are ready and the fork will happen at this block, right?
It's a Harpreet question, right? As a dev, when you look at ETH2, you're probably thinking, well, I'm just, correct me. I'm probably getting this completely wrong. But like when let's say you've got a live app already running, right, on ETH1, at what stage do you actually start to think or even think about moving to ETH2? Do you need how much testing do you need to do on ETH2 before we'll migrate? What's the logic?
No, as long as EVM is running, most of the contracts that's already deployed on ETH1 should be able to just work on ETH2. But you might have to repoint your links, or you might have to update certain features which are not yet really announced. But most of it, maybe some of the features that are relying on calling out balances, or checking for some of the ETH client based functions, there might be some changes. But overall, the contracts, I believe, will just run as normal, because there's no change to the EVM. It's just change to the consensus protocol. So, the EVM, the smart contract doesn't really care how it consent. It just cares about, has it been consent? And and has it been approved? So in that case, I believe that there's not going to be a huge change on the contracts itself. But there might be some, time needed for people to test that they work with full functionalities, and are all their contracts, do they need any sort of changes to be done? But I think at the moment, most of the players are already playing with the testnet, and they deployed their contracts there to try them. So I think this migration would not require a huge amount of effort from most of the developers. But I just feel that there might need to be a better, a longer time after the announcement, that for people to have enough time to test all their functions, before, to just ensure, there's no risk with their projects. I worry that I don't know. I hope that Ethereum don't go with Wi-Fi's fundamentals and decide to test everything in production. Because if they do that, the whole crypto market will go with it, right? Because the huge chunk is currently is on ERC and Ethereum economy. So if, let's say, Ethereum time to test it in production, I think we're going to wipe out half or more than half of the crypto economy.
I mean, they'd have to be running both networks simultaneously, I think, for a while, and give projects, a year to move over, and then you'd end up with native tokens, on one or both or the other, similar to what happened with a lot of projects after the KuCoin hack. So, like Aleph project that I've talked about a fair bit that I really like. I mean, they were affected. 10% of their supply was taken by the hacker, which was on KuCoin. And they actually had to do a V2 swap, which means that they had to basically take a snapshot. Boom. Everyone who held on day X, they would get an airdrop of X many Aleph. And then, the V1 became completely useless. And then,
that's an interesting way to do it, man.
V2.
Dude, other chains that got majorly affected, they did hard forks. So you see, Ocean Protocol did a hard fork instead.
No,
so they didn't.
Sorry,
go ahead.
Just to put something on on what Luke was sharing earlier. But this time we're not moving between chains, right? We're basically just using all our data that was already in, and just moving on all the latest transactions on Casper. Right, So I believe there's not going to be redeployment of contracts and migration of
Oh, yeah,
tokens,
true.
and all of that will not really take in account. I think it's just going to be like a new client update that will come out. Oh, we have Casper, so all the miners, you basically all the mining machines will go shut down because they can't really function on the new protocol anymore, and most of the validators and validators products will start to go live, and like validator clients will start to go live, and people will start to do stakings, and that will start to happen. And then basically it's the same blockchain, the contracts are on those blockchain, just have to check if some of the features like the contracts fully functional. Because if let's say you're calling oracles, you're calling price feeds, you're calling many different types of APIs, do they all function well with this new update? Right, that will be some of the challenges. And other than that, I don't think they're going to run two blockchains at the same time. They might just like, as how is it running, the testnet is go on, people will be asked to go and test it on the testnet if things works perfectly and the contracts work well. And later on, just when the time comes, they will announce the block. And right before that, I believe there's going to be like all the staking services and staking wallets and all this kind of feature will start to release, so people can like gear up to become stakers for like for the POS structure. And I think slowly you can see that the shift between from the miners or Ethereum miners to Ethereum stakers that will happen, because there's no change on the database, there's no change on the EVM. The change is only on the consensus. If let's say we were moving and creating a new virtual machine with a new virtual machine code, then there will be a huge change required, because like all the contracts might need to start programming it differently, or they maybe might have to even move on a new language. So there are changes like that happen where you can't when you do that huge changes, then you can't just update the blockchain. You will have to move from one blockchain to the another blockchain. There will be a hard fork. There is a possibility of a hard fork, not only of the blockchain, but also of the community in those kind of cases. But I believe in Ethereum right now, that might not be the case. It might just be an update.
Yeah. Well,
And maybe we can
really good input,
see
actually.
transaction fees below $1 again.
I hope. I hope.
That's the aim of the game.
No, but that is the issue with the Ethereum pricing model as well for the gas, right? Because it's always gonna, like the way they price it, I still don't see POS really solving that huge problem. I would really like the gas to be not less than $1, but be less than 10 cents if it's possible. But I believe the numbers of transaction output with POS, still it's not that promising. Promising. I hope sharding does the job, and where we actually can get way more transaction outputs and way lower gas fees. But still, the way the pricing that is designed in Ethereum, it's still going to give challenges in the future. So we are not there yet. I think it's still not the end game yet.
Yeah. Well, one last thing I want to talk about, though. Anyone who's seen my channel, if you can hear my voice, you probably know why I haven't released a video in 2 weeks. But I've actually got this one, and this actually is relevant to what you talked about, Harpreet. This is a project that I did an interview with, which I'll probably release in the next few days, as soon as my voice is good enough to do an introduction. And this is basically doing DeFi using Bitcoin and rootstock. So this is actually an interesting one called Sovereign, and it basically allows people to do all the cool things that we do in the Ethereum world and the ERC20 world using Bitcoin and rootstock, including leverage trading. They only allow US dollar, which is a Bitcoin-backed US dollar product, and then obviously BTC itself. But this is actually one of the very few things, and I'm not I have no business relationship with them, but this is one of those products that I really like because it shows that the main influence of the DeFi space and what the degenerate DeFi space that we've been dealing with, some of those good ideas bubble to the top. And, this is going to allow the Bitcoin community, which is still the largest by both wealth and users, to get involved in the DeFi space. So this is going to allow a lot of people to sort of get involved. Now, The other two main things I like about products like this is they've learnt. Well, I guess it could be they're more Bitcoin maxi, so full decentralized. There's no CEO. There's a business behind it, but it's run by a commune, and people can get involved however they see fit. And I don't know how they're rewarded, but it's all there. But there's no centralized leadership or management team or anything. It's all just a community driven project. And all their stuff is done. They've got like 15, 20 people just volunteering their time to build it, pushing stuff out on GitHub and whatever. I've actually got a 40-minute interview on the whole product, but it's something that one of the very few projects that I was like, and like I said, I'm not being paid to say this, but it's one of those very few projects that I've actually liked where I've said, okay, this can actually start to make a bit of a difference. And that's why I liked it. But I don't think at the moment there's no ICO. The only way you can get the tokens is by participating in the funding. So, you earn the same way that you would earn tokens through Compound. That's what these guys are doing. There's no VC round. There's none of that shit. And it's, a community-backed project. But it's still yet to be live, probably in another couple of months. But it's one worth looking at if you're a Bitcoin maximalist.
Hey, look, is that BTC on the ETH chain, or is that BTC on BTC?
This is Bitcoin on Bitcoin. No, they're not an anonymous team, by the way. They're not an anonymous team. All their names, you can track them all through their GitHub. So it's not like a Chef Nomi or something. They're actually human beings. The guy who I interviewed is an actual human being. It wasn't a dude wearing a Guy Fawkes mask or something. So they all have their profiles linked to the project. But the point is there's no central leadership. There's no CEO. It's a community-driven project. So, community-driven doesn't necessarily mean anonymous.
But look, this is on Rootstock, right?
Yeah, this is using Rootstock.
Okay, so I mean, if you really look into the applications itself, there's no Bitcoin smart contracts. Actually, there's Rootstock smart contracts that they do. They were basically the early version of Wrap Bitcoin. They were like, I will say, they were they were the first version of Wrap Bitcoin where they had their own chain with EVM running on it. They forked Ethereum, and they basically have smart contracts on them, and you can actually deposit your bitcoins, and you can actually get Rootstock.
RSK BTC,
RSK BTC. So they were the first version of Wrap Bitcoins. But if you really look into it, every projects and every ideas have a 48 months maturity cycle. So when RSK came out, Wrap Bitcoin wasn't really a thing. So it doesn't really pick up. When Kyber Network came out and Dexes came out, it wasn't really hot. And same goes when Daikos came out. In the beginning, it wasn't really hot. It took 48 months for them to really come out and start to build, Daikos to start coming out. And I think Daiko is still coming. Daikos and IDOs means initial DEX offerings. I think will be the next thing because everybody tried.
Are you leaking alpha here?
Sorry,
leaking alpha.
Harpreet is leaking alpha right now.
Yeah. So I mean, if you really look into the whole cycles of projects, right? They always took some time to mature and the ideas to really pick up. And once it starts to move, everybody just start building them, right? And now you can see, I believe there's going to be new DeFi products will be tested on all multiple chains, and atomic swap will finally become a thing where people will start to look into all that stuff coming in.
Man, Harpreet, look, it's amazing, man. So the last 2 weeks, I've been following basically the release of like all these bridge kind of companies which are trying to bridge BTC onto ETH, right? So you've got like atomic swaps, like you said, Harpreet, and you've got all the wrapped Bitcoin kind of like protocols. That is going to be huge because, like Luke said, right, 60% of the crypto market is still in Bitcoin. Right, so whatever we're playing with in DeFi right now is like child's money compared to like the big daddy money, which is still in Bitcoin, right? So once they see like the mature models that they want to use, for actual BTC to actually get involved with, that's for sure, man. That's got to be like the big play. So I'm super interested in that. We should definitely do another live stream on this.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. But like I said, and the thing about it, I mean, I'd love to be able to link it to a public sale, but there is none. All as far as I know. I don't know. Maybe they will do one. I don't know. But I got introduced to the product, and I liked it because it allows your Bitcoin maximalists to start dabbling in this space.
Yeah.
To a degree, and that's more what it is. Like guys who are, who basically say F Ethereum. This gives them an outlet to start experimenting with this stuff. Because their ideology will stop them from doing it on Ethereum.
But I'd like to point out one thing there, but you're talking about BTC locking in, moving to rootstock, and being in a small market, or if you look into BTC with wrap, or BTC with rent BTC, or BTC with on Ethereum, you're talking about a huge market size. But I believe there's going to be a time where every coins are going to start wrapping each other. I believe they're going to be wrap BTC on EOS, they're going to be wrap BTC on Cardano, there's going to be wrap Cardano on somewhere. So in this case, I think where people are going to start looking into.
But I mean, I guess the big difference with rootstock is you don't need to go and get, when you're paying fees, you don't need to go out and buy Ether if you want to do something with your BTC. You can interact with the Bitcoin chain and the rootstock chain only using your Bitcoin wallet.
Yeah, but then there's also a question about ecosystem, right? Yeah, because in this case, let's say if you look into the Ethereum ecosystem, the EOS ecosystem, the Cardano ecosystem, and the Bitcoin ecosystem, Bitcoin is full of miners and wallets, but where are the applications, right? In this case, if rootstock managed to get those applications on them, then we would have a stronger fight today. But if you're talking about wrap Bitcoins on rootstock, the ecosystem is not there yet. Even like the ecosystem is not big enough on the rootstock market to actually really compete with those that are available.
No, I agree. I agree with that point. Yeah. I mean, because and you don't have and you also don't have the level of development expertise that Ethereum does, where rootstock doesn't. Because I mean, like Consensus has done the best thing in the world by saying, if you're going to develop applications, do it here as opposed to over there, which is what Microsoft did, which is why they had such a dominance with Windows for 30 years before Apple sort of started to pull their finger out.
I mean, just look in the website itself, right? There's an app still coming for a new MetaMask version of rootstock. Like how many do we have on Ethereum right now, right? If you wrap a BTC on Ethereum, you have like 6 to 7 wallets easily that you can, like trustables one you can get out there. But I think you can easily get 30, open apps available that you can connect to your browser, and then you can just jump between markets. And then you can easily work with aggregators that actually can easily tell you where your liquidity is, where your finance is, and everything. So I believe, yes, there will be more, projects coming in, but I think there's also going to be a new rise of aggregators in this market, where they're going to look into this multi-blockchain ecosystem. They're going to see this new, because everybody would want to jump into and get a piece of the pie, and they will start building. But not everybody will succeed because they don't have the ecosystem. But in the end, aggregators will become big because they will be the one who get the fees in between, and they get the market. Because once
I think you also might be overstating the amount of ecosystems that will survive. I think that we'll end up in a world where there will be at most 5 chains that will be used for different things. Like you might end up with a Stellar chain that is really good, and all the payment solutions are going to be on that. Then you'll end up with whatever on Ethereum, dApps and smart contract based stuff on Ethereum. Bitcoin is only going to be for Bitcoin, and then we're going to have 2 other things for industries unknown or overlaps. I don't think we're going to end up in this world where you're going to end up in this world where we're going to have 15,000 ecosystems where they're all going to be competing with each other. It's just going to be too complex. And as soon as Ethereum starts doing sharding, it's going to make so many other chains completely redundant. Like people needing their own mainnet is just going to be like, why do you need that? And it's going to be a complete waste of money to try to build it. So like saying, oh, we've got the internet, but we're going to build internet too. Who's going to be on it? Shut up. It's like, they only need the internet, and then the internet does its own little thing on the side. If you want to, like the dark web and the deep web and stuff, you can build your own little sub things on the side. But
Yeah.
you don't need a second internet. We don't need a second lot of cables running under the street or on telegraph poles connecting the network twice. And that's why I don't see, there being this issue with a need for these, a bunch of aggregators to come in to link only, that will only end up being a handful of viable ecosystems.
I believe there's a bit.
Guys, let me.
I have
Let
a
me.
different.
Oh.
Yeah.
But also, we're sort of 10
continue,
minutes
Harpreet.
over as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So I
I'll
was
give
going to, but yeah. Go.
Yeah, I'll just give a short one here, but I believe there's going to be, optimization is the next phase. Like there's going to be a lot of the redundant blockchains dying off, but I believe there's also going to be more blockchain protocols still emerging, because I don't believe there's going to be one blockchain that can do all use cases. There's going to be multiple blockchains optimized towards different solutions, different kind of industries, and over time they will optimize well enough, and they will be the major protocols that actually manage that industries, and we will find a kind of a common ground on all of them, and start to interoperate between this. It's going to be like an internet of blockchains where multiple blockchains are doing many different things. But I don't think it's going to be 5,000, 6,000 blockchains that will survive. But I think there's going to be a small number of them, because developer ecosystem is still small, and we still have huge scarcity on numbers of developers that we have. But the industry will self-optimize as they go, because that is one of the needs for them to survive. I think I will pass that back to you, Peter.
Well, let me close it on that point, Harpreet. That's a fair point, man, and definitely a massive discussion to go into another time. Man, I'm a bad host because I didn't actually ask you to present your background. So maybe you just quickly, in like 30 seconds, tell everyone what you do and how to find you, just in case they want to reach out to you.
Okay, so hello everybody. My name is Harpreet Man. If you never noticed it yet, so basically I'm a blockchain developer turned entrepreneur. I run a blockchain development, training, and consultation company based out of Malaysia called Blockline. So if you want to if you want to find me, you can find me on LinkedIn. Harpreet Singh Man. I believe I'm the only guy with that name in the blockchain space. I don't think anybody. I'm still non-fungible in that space yet. But if you're looking for my company, you can search blockline.com, and if you want to email me, Harpreet, my name HARPREET @blockline.com. Yeah, don't send me spams, please. I don't need that.
Or ask for donation.
Noted.
Yeah, don't ask.
Luke, where's your favorite social these days? Where do people find you?
Just go to my channel. I mean, you should link my channel. You've got my link to my channel down below.
Yeah, it's on there. It's on there.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's it. I mean, just come find me. I'm probably going to be, as soon as I can create videos again, I'll be doing that as soon as my voice comes back. So we'll see what happens. Oh, and then next week I'm going to be in Dubai, I think. By the time we do this next week, I'm going to be in Dubai. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if the great firewall of Dubai allows me to use Streamlabs, because I don't know what works and what doesn't, because I know that WhatsApp and Viber and all that doesn't work. So video call, so we'll just have to wait and see.
Cool. Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, guys, let's wrap up for the week. Thank you very much for everyone that tuned in. Sorry, we went straight a little bit over, but I'm sure you guys enjoyed the additional content. If you haven't already, like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week. Thank you very much.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.